when I'm doing these acts of service, I'm like, I'm being a great husband. She's going to feel like I love her. And that doesn't get me anywhere. There's no traction there. And then when she explained that it was like quality time, I'm like, oh man, that's like the thing that I do the least. So that's something I've had to learn. And I have to actually remind myself, I have to remember that that's hers.
Hello and welcome. We're so glad you're tuning into the Taking Good Care show. I'm Dr. Andrew Wong, based in Toronto, Canada.
And I'm Dr. David St. Arnaud, based in Edmonton, Canada. We're two practicing psychologists with over a decade of experience each, working in a variety of settings and supporting diverse populations.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. While we're both practicing psychologists, our podcast is intended purely for educational and entertainment purposes. It's not a substitute for professional mental health care or treatment. If you're in need of support, we strongly encourage you to reach out to a licensed mental health professional in your area.
All right. Good evening, Andrew.
Definitely good evening. It's a late night recording during summer, trying to get things done before I leave on vacation.
Yeah. I think this is a first for us. So recording in the evening later, it's definitely later where you are, but wanting to keep up with the once a week release. So we're going to try to do this for as long as we can. And but we also don't want this taking over all of our personal time either.
We're going to try our best. You know, as long as people are enjoying this and we're enjoying this, I'm totally game to record late in the evening.
Well, it's still fun. So yeah, tonight I think we'll cover a couple of topics, and the first one we're gonna discuss is love languages. It's a pretty popular. There's a the book called The Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman, and so I definitely see a lot of clients, especially couples that come through my office that are familiar with this, and they're talking about it. So thought it'd be neat to share it with the listeners.
Yeah, no, I think how fitting. It's late at night. We're gonna talk about love and figure out, what is love all about? How do people define love? And even across generations, cultures, children, adults, so many different definitions of love and love languages. So I think this is a really interesting topic. And obviously, you do couples counseling. I don't, but even working with individuals, whether it's children, you see relationships with parents, with siblings, and some may be healthier than others. And you sort of wonder, do all children feel love the same or a little bit different? And depending on parent-child dynamic, love can feel and look very different. And I'm sure you see the same thing with couples.
Yeah, I think it reminds me of the episode on happiness. Like, love can be quite a vague term. And I mean, we could spend the whole time like looking at it from like I don't know, how it's been written about over the years. It's how it shows up in songs, and it's all around us. But when I think of love languages in terms of how it was in the book, Five Love Languages, it's more about like, how do people feel love, appreciated, valued, right? Like, it's not just romantic love. It's like, how do we show someone that we care about them, and how do people feel cared about? And quite often what creates problems, and just maybe before I keep going, this is not an evidence-based, this isn't a highly researched theory. So, but it's a very useful concept that I've, at least practically in my office, that I've seen, and where I'm, knowing that there are different ways that people feel loved and appreciated, and actually having names for those things, and being able to facilitate conversations to say like, hey, I buy you a lot of gifts, right, for your birthday and for these special occasions, and do you feel special? Do you feel like loved and appreciated when you're receiving these gifts? And, it allows for a conversation that might not happen, or might not happen early enough in a relationship or even in families.
Well, you have to think about the counterpart, like you said, like someone who buys a lot of gifts for the other person. But is that compatible with the other person who might be sitting there going, well, I don't need all these things. Perhaps, if you helped me out, if you took me out to a movie, or if, we, stayed at home and just cuddled and watched a movie, like I would be totally happy with that. I don't need five gifts or presents for my birthday,
Yeah.
right? Like so this idea of compatibility and understanding each other, because certainly I do see clients in my office. I don't do couples therapy, but when a client brings up the topic of how they may not be getting along with their partner, inherently the topic of love languages comes up.
Okay, so you're like working with an individual and also
Yes.
discussing love languages. Absolutely, yeah.
So I think even with that, I may sit there like it's harder because I don't have the other person there to verify or clarify, because obviously when I work with one person, it's just from that one person's perspective. Is it an accurate perspective? I don't know. So it would definitely help if the other person was there and I could actually do couples therapy. But nonetheless, like what I can do sometimes when a client brings up, hey, like things are not going well at home, I'm trying to find what their love language is, then from my perspective, it's helping them sort of get through this minefield and think about what are some pieces of evidence and observations that you've seen from your partner that they appreciate, right? Is it helping with the kids? Is it tidying up the house and they just feel more at ease and the whole environment just seems less stressful?
Yeah, I think that the concept of just knowing that there are different love languages, right? That because so many people, our frame of reference is ourself most of the time,
Yeah,
right? So what do I like? What makes me feel special and valued and loved? And then I'll do that for someone else because I would like them to feel that way. But knowing that not everyone has the same love language, and the book talks about having like a primary love language and a secondary love language, and maybe even one more. But typically, people have like a number one and a number two that out of the five, and maybe it's a good time to go through the five right now, just so the listeners understand kind of. I mentioned gift giving, so that's one of them. Receiving gifts is one of the five. Acts of service, so that's doing things for someone else, and that could be like doing the laundry, sweeping the floor, full, just other kind of tasks that you might do around the house. So acts of service is the second one. Words of affirmation. So saying nice things to the other person. Verbal expression of love and encouragement. Number four, quality time. So
hmm,
focused, undivided attention, right? Just you and me, or just us together with no distractions, spending good quality time together. And then physical touch, the fifth one. So, like you said, cuddling or hugging or just feel, like laying close to each other. It could be sex. It could be, like it's physical affection, physical intimacy. And there's probably more of these, but these are like the big five that a lot of people relate to.
yep,
So even just take a minute for yourself as a listener and go, which ones of those would be my primary, like what I receive, and which ones might be the people that I'm closest to.
yep.
Yeah,
And it's not to say that you can only be one out of the five.
yeah.
I think it's important to know that there are degrees to each of these, right? So just because we've listed five, it doesn't mean that you only identify with one. I think you can identify with probably even up to four, maybe even up to five, but just different degrees of them. You might value one
Hmm.
much more over the other, but it's not to say you won't appreciate, let's say, a gift, even though your love language, you might not fully identify with gift giving. If someone gives you a gift, I do hope that you appreciate it and you feel grateful.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I'll put this as like, what's the most like bang for your buck, right? So
Right.
what's going to get you the most traction if your partner only has a bit of energy left, what one of those five things that they would do would be the best investment of their time or energy. So that can help kind of really kind of pare it down.
Yeah. So I think I put you more on the spot in these episodes than you do to me. So I'll put myself on the spot.
Nice.
Just for tonight. Maybe it's just, the moonlight here in Toronto. But I'll say like probably my biggest ones that I appreciate from my partner is probably quality time. That's a big one for me. Words of affirmation, probably. And I would say physical touch and acts of service are sort of equal up there too. Gift giving, I know for me is probably the least.
Hmm.
Like that's on the bottom for sure for me. I appreciate gifts, don't get me wrong, but I probably, in terms of being in a relationship with the people closest around me, yeah, quality time. So even as the weather has gotten really nice here, like we've started just to go for walks again after dinner. As all the extracurricular activities with the kids have slowed down,
Hmm.
we've been able to just go for walks, 30 to 45-minute walks after dinner. And I really, really value that. And I really enjoyed them. So I think for me, like those were probably the top ones, and gift giving being on the lowest rung of that ladder.
Yeah. Okay, you don't have to answer this, but your wife, does she have similar ones, or do you know, or putting you on the spot heavy now?
Yeah, no, no. She's gonna listen to this and she's gonna be like, how well do you know me? I think so. I think for her, I've noticed, and I don't even know if I've expressed this to her before. I think for her, yeah, quality time, physical touch. I've even noticed for her, like she's really into hugs, even with friends. Um, so I know physical touch is probably a big one for her, and probably acts of service. Yeah, I would say quality time, physical touch, and acts of service for her.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would say again, gift giving for her is probably on the lowest one too.
So that, I mean, in terms of compatibility, right? If
Yeah.
you're going to create a date night, then, quality time, if that's both high up for you guys.
So
Yeah.
I think for us it's like, let's go catch a movie, let's go catch a dinner. Like it doesn't have to be grand gestures,
Hmm.
right? But it's like, okay, can we find someone to look after the kids tonight? And we get a couple of hours together to go out, just have a nice, calm evening just to spend time together.
Okay. So since you opened the door, let's keep going a little bit more. What about, and you can flip it back to me after too, but what about like family of origin, your family that you grew up in? How similar are these that you would say for them?
That's interesting, right? Because actually, when I was saying physical touch for my wife, we don't come from cultures. We're both Chinese background, but it's not a culture where you grow up, at least not in my family or extended family, where you hug everybody. I think I said this in a previous episode. I think in our culture, at least from my parents, very stereotypical, and you'll see memes on Instagram and stuff about this, but in Chinese culture, including my family, like acts of service is huge, right? So if you come home, you've had a long day, let me give you like an abundance of food, right? To this day, my mom will just cook and cook and cook for us, right? My dad will bring over soup. There will be days where my mom's like, I know you guys have had a long day. Let us bring over dinner for you guys. All you have to do is make some rice, some vegetables, and you've got your protein. We made the hard part for you guys. Even on occasion, my parents would be like, "Here, we'll watch the kids. You guys go out." So it's a lot of acts of service, right? Not a lot of words of affirmation, not a ton of physical touch. Quality time. My family, I can speak for my family anyway. Quality time was big. And my father is not a person who says a lot. Very, again, stereotypical older generation Chinese, but you can tell he really tried to create quality time, whether they were vacations, road trips, doing things together as a family, even getting out on the golf course. Like time and time again, even though I'm busy, he'll be like, "Do you want to go play golf?" Right? So quality time, I think, is big in my family too. But I do think culture plays a big role here.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how the way that you feel loved and appreciated, do you think, it came from the way you were loved and appreciated as a child, or do you feel like maybe, it's not as connected as that?
That's interesting. I think it definitely plays a part. Like that's why I think maybe acts of service and quality time is up there because there's influence. But I will also say though, like I do appreciate cuddles and I do appreciate the hug, even as we're walking past each other in the kitchen and we just hug, even though, and maybe this is because maybe I wasn't hugged a lot as a kid. I don't
Hmm.
know. Because it just wasn't a thing to do in my family. But maybe because didn't have as much of that, maybe this is why I appreciate it more now. I don't know.
I think that happens a lot in families, right? Like sometimes we do it because it was done to us, or we do it because we never got it, right? And
Yep.
so with these love languages, it could be kind of interesting. Like maybe you were wanting something that wasn't there, and now you look for it and it's quite high up in your list, or other ways it was like I think about I think about birthday parties, right? Like think
Mm,
about what do people do for birthdays in their family? And,
yeah.
do people get big gifts? Do they get no gifts? Do they have like what is it that makes people feel special on the day that they were born? I just find it fascinating to go to different birthday parties, even with my little kids. Like,
Mm.
there's different traditions and there's different ways of showing love and appreciation.
Which is interesting, right? Like my son just had his birthday party and we tried to not stress about gifts and we just say, you know what, we're grateful for whatever we get. It doesn't have to be many, doesn't have to be anything at all. But it goes back to, I think, how both, my wife and I, we value gift giving probably the least.
Hmm.
And we try to pass that down, that gifts are not important,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, no, that was like a therapy session for me, man. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna throw that back at you. How about you? Like, what are your love languages, I guess, on the receiving end?
For me, it's acts of service and physical touch. So, and I think kind of reflecting on my own family of origin and growing up, and even to this day, like you were saying, what your parents do, if we're changing the tires on my car, like that's my dad saying, I love you, right? Like and my mom's making muffins, in the kitchen, same thing. Like it just, maybe overly stereotypical, but those are like things that we would be doing activities or acts of service together. And that, that's our weekends when we're getting together. My dad's always like, um, what do you got for me to do? Right. Or like, what can I do to help around the house? And so there isn't a lot of quality time and just sitting or like even the words of affirmation. We're not saying we love you. Like we rarely actually use those words, but how do we show it? It's probably those ways. Physical touch, not really. Like we're not big. I mean, I shared before that we're like, my dad's side is French and there's a lot of touching and kissing and hugging when you see people, even if you don't know them that well.
Yeah.
I'm not super comfortable with that, like public displays of physical, affection or even just hugging people I don't really know. I don't
Yeah.
love that. But my kids and my wife, like the people closest to me, I love cuddling. Like this is like if I can, have 2 minutes before my kids fall asleep at night and we're like cuddling, that to me just hits home. So yeah.
And how about your wife? Like, again, I think going back to your question to me, do yours align with hers in terms of compatibility then?
Yeah, and maybe I'm a bad husband, but I think like the first one I know for sure, right? And we've talked about this and it is almost like ingrained in me because it's not mine. It's for her, it's quality time, right? So what I had to learn was, when I'm doing these acts of service, I'm like getting the groceries and I'm folding the laundry and I'm taking out the garbage and I'm thinking like, man, this is like I'm being a great husband. She's gonna feel like I love her. And no, that doesn't get me anywhere. There's no traction there. And then when she explained that it was like quality time, I'm like, oh man, that's like the thing that I do the least. Like to just not be doing an activity and just, sitting together. So, you know, that's something I've had to learn and I have to actually
Huh.
remind myself because it's not my primary love language. It's not my go-to. So I have to remember that that's hers.
Yeah.
And yeah,
So that's interesting. So it's like being mindful, perhaps in your day to day or week to week, just to carve out that quality time. So what would quality time look like then? Like if you have to mindfully do it and carve it out, like what might that look like?
well, when you said like going to a movie, that wouldn't even be quality time because that's like
Mm,
we're just watching a movie, right? And
right.
so when I thought even let's say we were back when Game of Thrones was like on every Sunday and it was a couple of hours and we'd be doing that together and I'd
Yeah.
think like, "Oh, this is quality time." No, it actually was not meaningful quality of time for her. So it's
Huh.
actually like sitting together on the couch with nothing else. The kids are in bed and we are talking about stuff or laying in bed or before we go to sleep. Okay, we'll have to delete that. The cleaners just came into the office. Obviously, they didn't think anyone would be here at this time. So, all right.
So even that's interesting, right? Because quality time is defined differently by different people.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I have to remember it's like distraction free time. So, even me looking at my phone or checking a text message when we're having that quality time is disruptive and almost insulting. And I mean,
Yeah, I
she's
can
not
see
here.
that.
She could speak for herself, but that's my interpretation of it.
Yeah, no, you know what? I can see where she's coming from. Because even when, let's say, we do go to dinner and I may notice, my wife's phone's coming out, I'll call her out on it. I'll be like, hey, I saw that. You were about to do some scrolling on your phone, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, you know what? I don't know if this isn't really talked about in the book, but like, how do we feel unloved or unappreciated?
that's interesting. I think it's so unique to everybody. Is it the opposite of those love languages that we just said, right? So let's say if somebody values words of affirmation,
Hmm.
is it then perhaps going on days and days without hearing words of affirmation? Does the feeling of being unappreciated or underappreciated sink in?
Yeah, I think that reminds me of like my needs aren't being met, right? Like
Mhm.
if that is your love language and you're not experiencing that, then you're gonna feel like, yeah, unappreciated or unloved.
So here's the million-dollar question then. Given how busy so many people's lives are, whether it's work and children and extracurricular activities, your own or others, can we fall into a trap where we forget to think about what the other person needs, what we need? And is that, again, I'm drawing from your experience, Dave, doing your couples therapy. Do you ever see that we fall into sort of this hole that becomes harder and harder to climb out of?
Absolutely. I think, when we're stressed, even like it takes work to try to understand someone else's perspective that is different than ours, right? Because like I said, it's almost automatic. It's our frame of reference. So it's easier because we often hear people say, well, if that's disrespectful or that's, I would never do that to somebody, right? And it's like, well, yeah, because that's how you feel about it. And it takes work to go like, well, actually, for someone else, they feel differently. So when I think, oh, I only got like an hour to do something nice, my first go to is like, what would I like? Oh, okay. But then I have to go, it's not what would I like, it's what would they like. And then I have to think, like, oh, so when we're stressed, when we're tired, when it's harder to do that and it's easier to forget.
Yep. And I do find working with some clients or even just knowing some people who I know, some individuals do think about themselves first. And again, I don't think it's a conscious choice. I don't think anyone is trying to be selfish, or to be labeled that way. But I think it's just their inclination. Like this is where their brain goes,
Hmm.
right? And do we fault them for it? And so how do we help people then, think of what the other person needs first? Sometimes I think, okay, yeah, we sometimes get caught up in our own values or feeling undervalued or underappreciated. But how do we ensure that we are also giving our partners or the people around us, our loved ones, it could be our children too, that we're giving them what they need?
Yeah, and I think the younger the child, the more they can't really speak for themselves. So we're guessing, right? But the older the child and
Hmm.
adult relationships, we can actually check in with people and figure out that like, oh, I've been using a lot of my time and my energy on something that really doesn't have a very big impact. And if I switch that time and energy to something else, that'll make a big difference.
Yeah. I think what would be such an interesting study for any researchers listening to this is like a longitudinal study from early childhood to possibly early adulthood to see how love language has evolved within a population. Because when we were prepping for this episode, we talked about, when kids are born now, immediately we're told to do skin to skin contact, right? And that to me shows like physical touch right there.
Hmm.
But does that stick?
Yeah, I mean the cultural influences, right,
Yeah.
on these ways of feeling appreciated and how much of these are kind of universal or
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I think that would be very interesting. So we're talking about having, showing love and feeling loved and appreciated. But this in terms of couples, what happens when there's a rupture? What happens when there's a fight? What happens like, do we go out and buy flowers? And,
Mm.
is that the thing to do? Right? Well,
Yeah.
maybe if your partner likes gifts, that is the thing to do. If your partner doesn't like gifts, then they think they're being like, they're just getting bought and they're like they'll feel actually maybe even that it's a cheap gesture that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the more you can connect with what your partner desires or wants or feels loved by, the more meaningful and thoughtful your efforts will come across naturally.
I think this is where, again, sometimes my work with adults get a little bit tough because I've seen some adults come to the office and they are confused. They're perplexed in terms of, I don't know what else to do. I've tried to provide, given all the different love languages. I've tried to give time, I've tried to give a gift. I've tried to provide physical touch, but I was rejected. So it's feeling a lot of rejection. I
Hmm.
guess I guess that's the theme for some of the people who I work with, some of the adults I work with. So eventually, I think because there's just constant rejection, it becomes really tough even for them to feel that there's hope in the relationship.
Yeah. Well, and I'm I'm a bit past the online dating app stuff. So, I'm not sure exactly what's out there or how this works, but maybe people are putting their love languages like on their profile on their dating app, and that might solve some of that. Like you at least would be, performing some kind of a gesture that would be aligned with what the person likes instead
Yeah.
of blindly guessing and trying to figure out, how to be romantic or how to, you know, yeah.
Yeah. Which is interesting. Again, does that mean that if you have similar love languages, that you're an instant match, right? And so, there's so many other factors. There's
Yeah.
so many other factors. This is why I go back to the point where if I'm working with someone and they're like, I've tried all sorts of love languages. What I once thought was a love language doesn't seem like it is anymore. So is there such a big rupture in the relationship that now it goes beyond love languages? Right? But perhaps understanding love languages, is it preventative, right? Is it being proactive? Is it being preventative?
Well, I think like just, at its simplest form, like you were saying, or we were saying earlier about like just a date night, right? How do you choose a date or how do you choose a vacation or how do you choose like you have to understand each other's values and yeah, so
Yeah.
this can just give you some insight into how to again kind of use your time and energy wisely. But I think about even the other way that this shows up is so say at our office, Christmas rolls around
Hmm.
and, we have, say we have 8 or 9 psychologists here,
Hmm.
clinical social worker. We're trying to decide like what do we do for the associates to help them feel appreciated? Or, there's one psychologist at our office here that will, buy gifts for everyone. And then everyone was buying gifts, but then some people don't like buying gifts. So, and then it was like no gift giving, but then, can we still let the person who actually, feels good about giving gifts, let them give gifts like these? And we kind of talked about this like as a cultural thing, but even within your own work environment.
I think this is, I mean, you're making me think about even for my office. Like for me, I just automatically go towards acts of service and quality time, which for one year, like I took everybody out to a Blue Jays game,
Hmm.
right? And then for another time, every winter holiday, Christmas, I will take everyone out for dinner, and I'll give a small gift to everybody. And then in the summer, there's always a social as well, usually at my place, where I provide food and all of that. But it goes back to like I think this idea of like quality time and acts of service. Like I'm gonna provide food for everybody.
Yeah, so it wasn't gift cards. It wasn't a financial bonus. Like you were trying to give an experience, a quality time where people could connect with each
Yeah,
other.
yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
again, kind of going back to my office, it's like, well, we've done that too, right? We'll have supper, like bring in food and have drinks and have everyone kind of together at the Christmas decoration party. But some people, aren't into the bigger social gatherings and
yeah,
and so then that isn't like they don't feel appreciated. I'm guessing they don't feel appreciated by that because they don't even really enjoy that. So, it's quite a an interesting. Actually, if I'm
yeah.
gonna put you back on the spot again, since we're doing this today, feeling a little risky, um, what about clients? I'm thinking of different ways that clients have tried to show their appreciation or thank me for what the work that we've done,
Yeah.
and I'm wondering what kind of experiences you had.
I've gotten gift giving for sure. During Christmas time, I will have a handful of clients who, over the years, very generous and will give a gift. Will even think of my children. And so that's very, very kind of them. Also, words of affirmation, right? That's often a big one. And I value that. That one in my work. I may not value that as much in my personal relationships, but I do value that one at work. I am really thankful when someone tells me that, they've really appreciated my work or, that I've done a lot of good for them. I think like you, like I, little kids are funny. Sometimes they will just come up and hug your leg.
Yeah.
And if it's in front of a parent, I'll make it very apparent I'm not hugging back. I might pat them on the back, really awkward pat on the back type of thing, right? But I think like you, unless it's my nuclear family, so my kids, my wife, I'm not huge into physical touch, right? So maybe that's the vibe I give off. No one's really ever tried to give me a hug at the office.
Oh
Maybe
no, what
maybe
kind of
that's a very
vibe?
positive thing. Thank goodness. I'd rather you not hug me, I guess.
I know, I'm just thinking, what kind of vibe do I give off then?
Okay, I'm gonna flip that back on
Yeah.
you then.
Well, yeah, I think I always think about like one of the writers that's written a lot about psychotherapy, Irvin Yalom, and he basically says like everything is grits for the mill, so everything is part of therapy. So even how people give you gifts is an indication about them as well as like maybe yourself. So the first thing is I think, oh, this is how someone shows that they appreciate someone. May not be the way that I feel appreciated, but it so like cards with written notes in them in terms of thank
Yep.
yous,
Yep.
emails, or yeah, gifts for sure. But yeah, that one I never want the college to come after me. So, I'm very conscious. Like the college has always had this like token value gifts only. And so it's sometimes hard to know how much something actually costs or how valuable it is. But I try to keep it, I'll accept things that are very token value. And if not, it's a hard conversation, especially if it's our last session and we don't have a lot of time to discuss it. It can be kind of awkward. Oh, and then yeah, the one that I was laughing about. I don't know. I've had people ask for hugs. I've had, yeah, just that has come up a bit, and I've had, mixed kind of experiences with it where again, I'm not overly like I don't think I'm looking for hugs. But yeah, it's kind of like, well, what's the purpose of this? And any physical touch for me as a male therapist is always, I'm very cautious around and almost maybe like overly guarded because I know a lot of people have misused their power in this position. So yeah, it's one where I can get really uncomfortable, even if it's like same sex. It's can be I'm like, I might unpack it a lot more than I would say if someone gave me a card with some writing in it. And
Hmm. No, I remember, Dave. There was a discussion back in grad school. I remember, I don't know if you remember, it was first year of our PhD, and there was a discussion because there was a client who wanted to hug you.
yeah,
Like that discussion stood out in my mind. I still
that
remember it.
I still remember that very clearly too. So, just maybe a Cole's notes of it is the hug lasted longer than I anticipated. And then what? And then it's the last session. There isn't time to really process it. Even so, yeah, I think it can be really important to be thoughtful around this, especially if you're new in this field and starting out. And, I was being supervised. And so I had you and I had like my peers to consult with and make sure that felt like I did the right thing or at least learned from the experience. Yeah, I could go on about different experiences, but yeah, I'll keep that to myself.
So this is where maybe this is why maybe I do give a bit more of a cautious vibe when it comes to the quality of rapport. Maybe it also comes from my history. Like I don't come from a hugging background, so to speak. Even as I was coming up into young adulthood and I noticed like people all around me from other ethnic backgrounds, like they hug and stuff. Like to me, that was still sort of foreign,
Hmm.
right? And so I don't know, maybe in the therapy room even now, maybe I do give off that vibe of like, you know what, physical touch, no. I prefer not to. And I like how actually like you said, like there are some clients will ask you for hugs. Very rarely for me. Like again, a kid sometimes will come up for a hug out of nowhere. But for me, that piece I'm much more cautious about than gift giving. Gift giving, I'm still cautious about, like you said, with our colleges. But I also think about, if I don't accept the gift, like I've never been gifted like, I don't know, tickets to a sporting event or a car or like
Yeah, yeah.
anything that's, that expensive. But, if I don't accept a certain gift, like for example, a client who gives me something for my kids, like I just see that as a kind gesture. Thank you.
Hmm.
It's not out of the blue. It's Christmas time. I really appreciate it. If I don't accept the gift and someone's gone out of their way to do that for me,
Yeah.
could that be more of a rupture in the therapy setting, right?
Yeah, could that be harmful? It's a judgment call, and at minimum, a lot of times, what I'll check out is like, especially if people are paying for therapy, like if they're paying the
Hmm.
full rate and they're also bringing a gift, it's like, what, do you feel like you need to give me more? Like like to me, it's already a fair trade, right?
Hmm.
Like, so what is it about this? And but if it's a client who I'm seeing at reduced rate or sometimes even at no cost, and then they
Hmm.
want to give me a gift, I can understand that, right? Like it's like, oh, okay, that. you feel like, but I don't want people to feel like indebted either, right?
Yeah.
Like they have to give me gifts. So if it's Christmas time and, the waiting room has people with gifts for me, like I don't want like, and then someone shows up and they're like, oh, I didn't know I had to give him a gift. Like, I'm tucking those gifts away. I'm tucking those cards away too, right? Because
Yes.
that is
Yes, me
not
too.
something that I'm
Yes.
expecting, or,
Yes.
it can be nice, but it's again, it's what does this mean for the client?
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
Well, and we did our episode on boundaries. This also goes into boundaries, right? And so like you might be giving off a vibe, but you might also have a clear boundary that says like no physical contact, and it might be right in your consent form, right? And so
Yep.
just that's the other part with this. Sometimes people are just testing boundaries out, right? And they're not sure. Maybe it is their cultural background that that's what they do at this time of year and this is how they show that appreciation. But you have to also be wondering like, is there something more to this? And like, we would have people bringing, flowers to our office manager at the front desk. And we're like, like what is going, like, it's nice. There's nice flowers at our office, but like, is there something more to this? And
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. No, I once had a client who brought me so there's a certain drink from Hong Kong that for some reason I think it had come up once. I think she was drinking it in a session. I was like, oh, I remember that as a kid. And guess what? The next session, she brought me one.
Hmm.
But it was just really kind. And again, perhaps they value a bit more around acts of service and gift giving. Right. And it wasn't a gift I was going to turn down. In fact, it felt really appreciative and we actually actively listened
Hmm.
in a session from a client.
Okay, so I'll throw this out there on like an extreme end. And I hopefully I'm not misquoting, but I know someone who worked at like the max prison system in mental health, and
Hmm.
like their part of their training was you don't accept anything from any of the inmates, like, and you don't give anything. So even if they ask to borrow a pen, like sometimes they're checking out to see
Mm-hmm.
what you're willing to do, and it might start with a pen and then it comes to like, and you've heard these things have been documented in the news, right, where like a lawyer is bringing banned
Yeah.
substances into a prison, right? And like how does that happen? Well, sometimes it can happen very gradually. So just being mindful too, right? So maybe you accept the first gift, but then the second gift you're not so comfortable with,
Yes.
and then how do you have
Yes.
that conversation?
Yeah. And again, knowing who your clients are, right? So I have been offered certain services, people who work in the service industry, they'll want to give tickets to all the staff or do things for the office free of charge, if I need help at the office. And those ones I'm very cautious about because that is a slippery slope. Is it going to feel like if they help patch up a couple of things at the office, now does it feel like I owe them something too?
Yeah. Well, you know what? And maybe just to take it around full circle, like the reciprocity, right?
Yeah.
Like if I buy you a gift, do you buy me a gift? Like with family members, oh, like if we have, if we have a birthday party for our kids and we're, saying gifts are there. And then when we go to the next one and there's no gifts, like,
Mm-hmm.
does that feel
Mm-hmm.
awkward? And so a lot of these things are unspoken.
Yep.
And I know we kind of we shifted a little bit, but I think this is what psychologists do when they're chatting after hours. So,
And
uh,
it's late.
yeah, I'll take you back to the five love languages and just any takeaways that you had from tonight or
You know what? I think the evolution of our discussion in and of itself is very interesting because we went from talking about love languages with partners to love language in our practice in terms of feeling appreciated. And, with our families, it just seems so much more disinhibited, right? Someone comes in for a hug. I know my daughter, one of her love languages is definitely physical touch. Like she'll just come in for a hug whenever and just surprise me. But it's so much more disinhibited versus when we're out in public, we're in the work world, how much more on guard I am.
mm-hmm.
And I would hope and think that most people are that way. And our love languages shift depending on the context. I think just how our conversations evolve, this is what I'm getting out of it. That in other circumstances, we're a little bit more cautious, as we should be.
Well, yeah, I don't know if the love languages shift, but the social kind of like expectations or
Right.
norms, depending on the context that you're in, will shift. Like,
Yes.
is it appropriate or inappropriate will depend on where you're at. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of my takeaway, I kind of just surprised at how the conversation went and how much it relates to, not just working with couples, not just, in the family, but it does. This is coworkers, this is across the board, and really reminding me to be more mindful and put in that effort to not just do what I like, to do what other
Hmm.
people like, and try to learn other people's love languages. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. To learn about it, be cognizant. And I think even when we're feeling like our love language isn't fulfilled, I think then it's also being mindful of thinking about, wait, am I fulfilling the other person's love language too? Right?
Hmm.
Is it, like you said, is it reciprocal? Is it because I haven't given a lot lately, and that's
Hmm.
why I'm not receiving a lot either? Right? But I think it's so important to be cognizant and mindful of that because if we're not, then we just keep digging ourselves into a hole. Like, you're not giving that to me, so I'm not giving it to you. Back and forth, and we just keep using that shovel to dig, dig, and dig.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like you said, working with individuals, sometimes I'll recommend the book just as like a way to ask some questions about your partner's love language, right?
Hmm.
And to be like, oh, geez, she's feeling starved and so am I. We're both putting in the effort, but it's not in the right way. So,
Yep. And just for our listeners, there are exercises out there. If you pick up Gottman's Seven Principles for Making a Marriage Work, I actually like that book quite a bit, ever since the first time I read it, because of the practical exercises that are in there.
mhm.
And it talks about things like this, love languages, and what do each person need in a relationship.
There's even a free app I have it on my phone. I'd have to look it up, but
Gottman
it,
has it?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
it's a Gottman app that's free, and it actually so that you can do it with your partner or partners, and um, be asking each other questions in those
Yep.
different areas. That is super neat and fun.
Cool. I didn't know they have an app now. I can tell people.
And
Perfect. I learned something.
we can tell the world on this.
Perfect.
You're welcome, Gottman. So if you liked tonight, if you liked our podcast, then click like or follow or subscribe. I think the more people that do that, the more it gets kind of easier to find for other folks that might not be familiar with it. So yeah, spread the word, and also give us some feedback. If you have some time, write a comment. We are very interested to hear some of the feedback and adjust as we go, and maybe even answer some questions or talk about some topics that people are interested in.
That's perfect. I couldn't have said it better myself. And finally, it does help us keep producing these episodes with the follows and the likes and the subscribes. So, yeah. In the meantime, Dave, take good care. I really enjoyed this discussion, just like all the other ones. This one was interesting, doing this late at night and talking about love language.
Take care, Andrew.
Take care.